as he was addressing the church at Rome, he tried to help them understand what it meant to be a Christ follower and what the church would look like as those who followed the Christ. And in the context of a number of things, Paul makes that oft-quoted verse that we are to rejoice with those who rejoice and to weep with those who weep. And that verse has been used multitudes of times. And as a community of faith this morning, we have an opportunity to do that. Well, we have a birthday, and I wasn't going to point that out. Greg has graciously pointed that out, but it's a very sensitive issue this year for some of us. Right? Yes. But a little bit later in our service, we're going to have the wonderful opportunity to rejoice with Lothar and Beata as we reflect and celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary. But we also rejoice as a community of faith this morning with Ashley, who is a fresh graduate. I saw her go by in the truck. Very wonderful. But before we move to a more formal time, and I told Lothar that I would leave the little celebration to the end so he could sweat a little longer. But we are delighted to have Kevin and Michele with us this morning. There is a connection to the later part of this service, but Kevin and Michele have been with eMi now for
9.5 years.
Wow, 9.5 years. And we have thoroughly enjoyed hearing of their journeys and the amazing things that they have been involved in. And so, because of the celebrations that were happening this weekend, they are here, and we are delighted to have them come and to share with us. Welcome.
Good morning. It's great to be here. I really enjoyed coming this weekend here. I'll just. Our Talia is here with us today. Kaisa is not. She is in Victoria this week with the Baptist Convention Serve team, so she's there serving this week. So it's a little bit smaller, but we have that whole row there. So it's great to be here this week. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do, and then we have some stories to share with you about what's going on around the world and what we've seen God doing around the world and the people we've been interacting with, and some exciting projects. So just to familiarize yourselves, our family is involved with Engineering Ministries International. We're a group that takes volunteers overseas. We take volunteer engineers, volunteer architects, and surveyors, and we go work with other groups that are already on the ground that have a vision to build something in the nonprofit world, a school, a hospital, an orphanage. So we go and help them provide engineering services to build these facilities. So we are on staff. We work in the Calgary office, and I lead these volunteer teams. Michelle's in the office doing communications, and so we get to do lots of trips. We get a lot of exposure and this kind of thing. So we're really excited about what we do, and it's really good to be part of it. So just to Michele, why don't you tell about the latest project that?
Yeah, when we were here last year, we had recently come back from Haiti. And that was a special trip for us because it was the first time that we took our girls along on an Engineering Ministries International trip. They had watched Dad go on these trips. Mom had gotten to go along a few times. They'd seen lots of pictures, but this was the first time that they got to come. And it was a really, really neat trip in that way. Partially because our whole family was there, partially because there were lots of kids. We were there designing a new children's home. There was already an existing children's home that they needed to move. And because of that, there were kids there already that my kids got to know, the kids that our designs would eventually serve. But I'm going to back up because I know most of you probably don't remember what we said last year. The couple that had the vision for this children's home, she was Haitian and had come to Canada as a young adult to attend university. He was actually Nigerian, and they had met in Canada, fallen in love, gotten married, and he was in construction, and it wasn't until their church did a missions trip to Haiti, and she had gone along on that missions trip, that she had realized just what was all happening in Haiti and decided that, well, this is part of our heritage and she wanted to do something about this. And so that's kind of when God gave her a vision for a children's home. And they started this children's home. Originally they were going to be working with abandoned street children. They realized that the support services required for abandoned street children were beyond what they could offer. And so they started working with more traditional orphans, which in the Haitian context doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have a mother or father, but it means that for whatever reasons, they can't live with their mother and father. Probably very similar to what a foster system might do in Canada. But there it is actually a home. So they developed this home, they rented a place for it. If you can flip to slide 3, or slide 2, sorry. There we go, there they are, Sam and Camille. They had started this children's home. When we got to Haiti, they had 13 kids living in this home. Some of the stories were heartbreaking. There was a little girl that was 7, 8 years old, and they said when she came to the children's home at about 3 or 4, she didn't know how to smile. I mean, 3 and 4-year-olds, they laugh all the time, right? And this was something that in her home situation, she had learned to do. There was a 12-year-old boy that had gotten dropped off there, and he didn't actually fit the qualifications of who they take into the children's home. And they said, no, we can't take him. And the father said, well, I don't want him back. And the boy is still dealing with a lot of the emotional outfall of the rejection of his family in that way. Heartbreaking stories. If we wouldn't have heard them, we would have had no idea. Because the kids that we met at Children's Home, they were wonderful kids. They were laughing, they were smiling, they were running, they were playing tag with my girls and all the rest of it. So we had a wonderful week there with our girls while Kevin and his team did the design of the new children's home on the land because they were getting kicked out of their rental. The girls and I got to go to the existing children's home just about every day and spend time with these kids. Well, fast forward a year later. In October, we got word that the construction was progressing well. We got a picture of a partially constructed building, and then construction fell off. Because it's Haiti, after all, and Haiti has political issues, and the political issues were causing problems, and the construction workers weren't working the way that they were supposed to, and, well, that happens sometimes, right? Well, we were really excited just a few weeks ago to receive these pictures here, if you can flip to the next slide. You can see on the top right, right there is a design that the eMi team put together. What you can see on the bottom there is the actual constructed children's home. The kids have moved in. The kids that my kids were playing with have a new home now. And it's exciting. Now, what you see here is actually eventually going to become the guest house. But because the children had to move out by April, that was the deadline that their landlord gave them, the way the eMi team designed things was to make the guest house in such a way that it can initially be used as the children's house. And then as they move on to design the larger areas for the children, so that they can accept more children into their children's home, this home will turn into a guest house for visiting teams, and the children will have a bigger area. But for now, this is the children's home. This is where those kids are living. And if you flip to the next slide, I think we've got, oh no, it was back. Can I get you to go back 3 slides? I think there's a picture there of my kids. There you go, that one right there. Those are a few of the kids from the children's home there. Sorry, the one on the right is. The one on the top are kids from the church, but that was from the existing children's home right there. So that's really exciting for us, because a lot of times when we go there and design things, we're working on master planning. We're working on 5-year plans, 10-year plans, sometimes even longer than that. Because when you're working with ministries, they don't usually have a few $1 million sitting around to go ahead and build exactly what you designed right away. And part of what we do is do that, do the phasing, just like here, where the first step was going to be this children's house that's going to be the guest house. Next will come the larger children's home, then will come the school. It will come step by step. But it's so exciting to be part of catching that vision from Sam and Camille, putting it on paper, saying these are the steps that you need to take, and then seeing those steps be taken and seeing lives changed, improved, impacted because of that.
So I was in Uganda in September, and in some ways it's a very similar story, but in some ways it's very, very different. So there was this lady grew up, this Janet. Janet is the lady in the middle in the bottom left picture there. She grew up in Uganda in a small little village, and it was a very destitute, and she somehow got through high school, and she got her teacher's certificate, and then she went to go back to work right next to her home village. And as she had this heart for the kids on the street. There's this. She was bringing in kids off the street to live in her house. She's a single lady, and she was informally fostering kids off the street to come live in her place. So she's got this huge heart for kids, and she just loves kids. And so about maybe 10 years ago, she had 10 or 12 kids living in her little apartment, and she had brought them off the street, and she had her meager salary as a teacher's salary. Well, so that's her. So that's Janet. Jody is living in California. She goes on a church missions trip to Uganda. So Uganda's a tiny country, but Janet's on one side of the country. Jody has a missions trip on the far other side of the country, and it's only a few hundred kilometers apart, but it's 18 hours apart, right? It's a long ways apart. And somehow Jody hears about this mysterious lady, this amazing lady in the other side of the country, and she sort of has this dream and this idea and this thing. She's gotta go find this lady, gotta go figure out who this lady is, and gotta go encourage her, gotta go figure out what's going on, and just so she gets on a bus, a chicken bus. She didn't bring her husband or her kids along on this trip, right? So, and she went with another local guy, so she's on her own in the middle of Uganda. Everyone's saying, don't go, this is crazy security, safety thing, but anyway, she goes, and she gets there, and she somehow finds Janet. So Janet and Jody meet, and Jody's saying, this is amazing, she finds out more about what Janet is doing, and she says, we've got to support you, we got to figure out how to make this work as a bigger, got to grow this foster, got to get more kids off the street. She really has a heart for this. So this was maybe 5 years ago that they met. So Jody helps Janet get into a larger house, and so they're renting this facility, and Jody goes back, and she's raising money back in California to support this lady. It's not an organization, it's not a non-profit organization, it's not a big group, it's just one lady with 10 kids. And so she starts sending some money over, and then Jody goes over and visits a couple times. They bring baby clothes over, and they bring baby formula, they bring all kinds of stuff to help them do this. And so it's growing, and Janet says, well, I got a bigger house now, that I got more corners, I can put more kids in, let's bring in more kids. So they start bringing in more kids, and all of a sudden, from 10, it's all of a sudden 20 kids in this tiny little place. it used to look like a big place, but now it's a tiny place again. so Jody realized that she's in over her head. She doesn't know anything about nonprofits, about Uganda, about Africa, about development, about charity, about raising funds. They're both in over their heads. They're both drowning. They don't have a clue what they're doing. But they finally realized that they didn't have a clue what they were doing, and so they called someone, and so and someone called someone else, and so somehow we eventually got involved. So eMi eventually somehow got involved, and so we went to go visit them in September last year, almost a year ago, and we went there and figured out what they were doing, what their dreams were. They had. By then, their dreams were just exploding out the walls of their place there, and so they had just purchased some new property. It was several kilometers away, and so we went to go visit this new property, and we brought our engineers, our architects, brought our surveyors. We surveyed the land, and we helped to develop this vision. So this vision, the top right is the property. It's about 7 acres. It's about they have about 8 houses there of 10 kids each, so 80 to 100 kids they want to house on this property. There's a school in the bottom and a church on the facility, and then the bottom picture is sort of a rendering of what they want to build. So this is what we provide them, and then they said, yeah, that's the vision, but we also don't know how to build anything. So we don't know how to raise money, we don't know how to build. So they found someone in California. They found a contractor who was thinking maybe he would retire in 5 or 10 years, but they convinced him, maybe you should do it earlier. so he's been being convinced. He's currently being convinced, and he's pushing back, but he's gone to travel to Uganda 3 or 4 times now for several weeks at a time, and he's working with a local contractor to try and get construction started. So they had some land boundary issues that they thought they bought 7 acres, but they were only given 6 acres, and so they were working with the locals on that. And then he went over there to figure out what kind of construction materials, what kind of contractor. What size of contractor? Are you going to get a big city contractor to go build this all at once? Do you go get a local contractor, a local masonry guy, just to lay 1 brick at a time and hire the local labor from the local village? Or how do you get something like this built? So he's totally in over his head too. He's a big commercial contractor, and he just points fingers at people do stuff, right? And so, but he's good in Uganda, and it's a little different. It's a little different there. And, so that right now they've raised enough money for one and a half of these buildings, and they're going gunzo building the first ones. So they're really excited. They're really excited to move in and to move there and to start a church in this little bit of a different community. And it's amazing to see these guys, Janet and Jody and the other guy. There's several. There's a half a dozen of them that are going over there that don't have a clue what they're doing, but they're jumping into both feet and saying, let's do this. God's given us a call, a vision, and we're gonna do this. And it's amazing that we get to meet people like this that are just they're drowning, but they're going with it. Go to the next slide. This project was different again for us. This was in Nigeria. I was just there in April. Nigeria is all over the news, and it's a country that's going downhill quickly, and all kinds of different reasons. We were not near the Boko Haram area. We were not near the oil area. We were not near any pirates. We were sort of right in the middle, so we were okay. But we had to fly there, so we didn't want to drive there because you had to go through news. So we we flew in there, but we landed in this state capital city. So it's got a million people in it. Yeah, so it's a good sized city, and they have a university. They have 2 universities. So this is a private Christian university. It's got 10,000. No, it's got 3,000 students now, and they want to build it up to 10,000 students. So So all 3,000 students live on campus. So it's a very vibrant Christian university where the students are required to, they do devotions every day in a group setting and individually, and then they have chapels. It's very God-centric university. You don't come across that everywhere, but this was good to see. It was really encouraging, and their goal is to get these students, once they have a career under them, to launch them not just into the world, but to launch them with a God-centric view of where God's taking them. You know, they're launching lawyers and doctors and engineers, and they don't want to just throw them at big projects, but they want to have them give them a good basis. So it's an exciting group. We jumped in as it was a very cross-cultural project for us. So they called us not because they needed engineers. Nigeria has lots of expertise. They have oil. They have lots of technology. They don't need engineers per se to get things built. But one of their big problems is corruption. You know, they have a lot of corruption. So this is a administration that wants things built well, but they don't want the local people to take them for a ride or whatever. Sell them some snake oil and sell them a water system that is way too much that they don't need. You know, they wanted a third party to come in and sort of set the groundwork. So we came in to sort of set some fundamental a level of development. You know, they don't need a desalination plant. They don't need, you know, what level of technology do they really need at this university, and what's going to be sustainable? What can maintenance really keep up? And so they were able to maybe be able to find the funds to do something at a lower level, but not necessarily at the higher level that their local people were telling them they could. So we went there as a small group. We had a couple engineers from the States. We had a guy from India, which was very interesting. He's a recent graduate from India. So he's a 22-year-old engineer with almost no experience from India. He's never been out of India. The first place he goes, Nigeria. He said, "Sure, I'll come." He was super excited about it. And his family's all jealous that he got to go to Nigeria, and no one he knows has ever been to Nigeria. So, anyways, it was really good and fun to have him along. So we went to do some soil testing, some surveying. We met with the local administration, and it was a good project to set them on a good track. They have set it on a solid track there. So that was in April, and they have a long-term vision of growing this place. So one more. Just to show you, this is Haiti. This is how many people it takes to do a leach field in Haiti, and that's not coffee break. Well, maybe it is, but there's lots of guys and no machinery. And we designed this system, and they had never built anything like this, so it takes lots of guys to figure it out, but lots of manual labor. So it's all hand dug, all that gravel is wheelbarrowed from kilometers away. It's a lot of work, but it's exciting to see some of these projects that are not only the very bottom level of development. They're not only latrines, not only septic tanks, but projects being done that are a little bit more sophisticated when that ability is there to get it done. And then this is that same project where they had a massive creek. I think I showed you some pictures last time or another time. Massive creek going right through their property, and we had to channel it. So the first thing they had to do on their property was to channel it. So they built this as their first fundraiser for this vocational school. Let's build a channel right through our property. How do you raise money for a wall and a channel right through your property as the first thing, right? They did a good job of it. I don't have any more photos, but I'll tell you one more story that I'll probably never forget. I was in Ghana in 2014, early 2014, I think, and there was we ran into an older, well, the guy that was running this NGO, he's a 70-year-old or more from Ghana. He grew up in Ghana. He's an amazing guy, and he's running this ministry. So his story, he told us a story one night, and it was silent for an hour while he's telling a story. It's just, I'll never do it justice. But he grew up his mom got remarried, and he got kicked out of the house, and when he was in school, and so he was barely going to school, and he found him and 11 other guys, so 12 of them were sort of hanging around together, barely going to school, hanging on the streets, trying to make a living, and so there's sort of this group of guys, it's sort of this gang, and I don't know which one it was. One of them, some of them, they determined that this is not the way it should be. We should be going to school. We got to do more with our lives. We can do this. And so they grouped together and they made a pact amongst themselves. They said, we're going to get ourselves through school somehow. Let's get ourselves through school and through high school. And so it took them a while, but one at a time, 10 or 11 would work and pay for the fees for the other 1 or 2 to get through school. And when they were through, they would join the workforce, and so they eventually all got through high school. And then they said, we can't stop there. We can't stop there. We got to go further. School is where it's at. We got to get each other through university. We got to get some careers. We got to be able to build back into our community. How are we going to build back into our community? And to do that, we need more skills. We need to become doctors, we need to become lawyers, we need to become engineers to bring it back to our villages and to provide justice and just to lift up our community. And so that same model, they would work and put each other through university. So they all went overseas to do their bachelor's, to do their master's, to do their doctorates. So there's 12 guys that have their doctorate degrees from overseas universities, and they're now all back in Ghana in their little villages. So you got these doctorates of anything and everything, ecology and lawyers and engineers. They're all back in these villages. They're not running corporations. They're doing the villages. They're running. They're helping their people. And so we met this one guy, and he's one of the 12, and he had come to Canada. He'd come to Dalhousie. He did his PhD in some environmental sustainability degree, and he went back and he started some microfinance, and he's got a seed co-op for the local women, and he's raising pigs and getting the locals to come and work in his pig, and then they would take a share of the profits. He's teaching people how to be sustainable in the agricultural perspective. So he's built up this NGO in this village in Ghana. So he's in his 70s now, and he's telling his story. He's saying, I've gone through a lot in life. God has taken me a long ways. He's taken me from the street kid to now he comes to Canada. I don't know how many times he's raising money. He's pretty high profile in Ontario and East, and so he says God has taken me a long ways, and I've felt like I've been drowning the whole time, and God is just I keep take another step, and so we were called to his agricultural facility there. They called us, and they said, we have someone in his group had this vision for a hospital. A hospital. What does a hospital have to do with agriculture? Nothing, almost nothing. But he said somehow he's got this vision. The 70-year-old Ghanaian elder has this vision for a hospital in his village. And so he's got a whole bunch of doctors from Ontario around him, and they're pushing this thing forward. And he said, God's taken me so far, and I thought I could relax. Why can't I relax? I'm 70 years old, I'm frail, I can hardly walk. I like the comfy chairs, and God's saying, no, you got to do more. You've taken it this far. You got to keep going, and you can't stop now. You got some momentum, and he says, it's like walking into the ocean, and the tide. And God's saying, take another step, and and deeper and deeper. And he says, I'm up to here. I'm not comfortable anymore. I never was comfortable, and I didn't think I could go deeper. But there's another step. And he said, yeah, this hospital thing is scaring him to like crazy. And he says, I've gone through so many things in life, but this hospital thing still scares me. And so, it was just amazing. We were able to work with him and his crew and the doctors and come up with a vision for this hospital. And it's a huge hospital. They want it to be nearly Canadian standards in a rural Ghanaian context, and it's 50 beds, including maternity and outpatient clinic, and our cost estimate was like $30 million. This is a $30 million hospital, and it's amazing. Well, we were there in 2014, so a year later they had raised three-quarters of it. They had raised $20 million, and so they haven't quite got it all. They're almost there. They're ready to break ground here within 6 months maybe, or by the end of the year or something. But it's something else to hear these stories of these guys. And I just wanted to encourage everyone that that there's so many different things to take from this, whether it's how God uses each one of us where we're at, wherever that is, whether that's building a hospital in Ghana, but it's doing Sunday school in the summer, it's serving your kids, making popsicles for the neighbor kids, whatever it is, we're serving the church. I just want to read from 1 Corinthians 12, where Paul's talking to the church, and he's talking about the church and all the different parts of the church. There's so many different skill sets and so many different visions and view, and God uses it all for the bigger church. So the body of church, the body of Christ, the church, is not made of one part, but of many. So if one of us should say, because I am not a hand, I don't belong to the body, I'm not important enough, it would not for that reason cease to be part of the body. And the same with an ear. If an ear would say, because I'm not an eye, I don't belong to the body. So, if one part suffers, every part suffers. So it's working together. And then verse 27, now you are the body of Christ, and each one of you is a part of it. And in the church, God has appointed apostles, prophets, teachers, workers of miracles, gifts of healing, and everyone has a part in that, whether it's this guy in Ghana, or it's whatever it is God has called you to do here and now, and it's not all over there, but it's praying for those guys, it's encouraging them, it's giving, it's supporting what's going on in Kaleden here, and we're all part of it. We're all part of this bigger, wider church. We tend to think of our church as this is the Kaleden church, and we do little bits around the world, or in particular we do little bits here and there, but this is the Kaleden church. And the more I travel, I see the church isn't all these little bits. The church is the it's all of it together. The church in Ghana that we went to, the church in Nigeria, the church in Uganda, the church in Haiti. They're all doing their little bits, but it's the vision. God's vision for the church is huge. It's all of this, and it's all these churches reaching out to everywhere, and it's not insular. It's this huge thing. So I just love hearing these stories of these guys. These are some amazing guys around the world, and we just get to hear their stories and be part of it, and to see where God's leading them. He's leading them in amazing places, amazing ways, and He's using us at eMi. But I see we're so privileged just to be able to be a sliver in the part of this hospital. We're not going to be there delivering the babies and going on forward for the next 20 years in this hospital. Someone else has to do that. But we're able to be part of that vision. So yeah, we're just so privileged to be part of this weekend with you guys, and to be able to share today. Is there anything else we need to update or share? I think we're Let me just, I'll just close in a quick word of prayer here, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Lord, we love you and we thank you for working around the world. You're doing such amazing things around the world. There's so many stories of you working in individual lives, you tugging at heartstrings in each one of us individually. And we're encouraged by it. We pray that you would continue to work in our lives as you push us, as you prod us, as you pull us in the direction that you call us, whatever that might be. We thank you that you're a big God. You're working around the world. You're working in our hearts. You're working in the corners of Africa and Haiti, all over the world. You're working in the lives of so many people around the world. We thank you for what you've done in each of our lives. We look forward to how you're going to continue working in our lives, how you're going to continue working around the world, and just keep showing us your amazingness. Praise in your name.